My target audience has been Christians in general. My goal really has been to help Christians take the next step in their spiritual life and their spiritual walk. There have been times on this channel that I have created videos that talk about what it's like being a pastor, talking about pastoral discouragement. Have I ever thought about leaving ministry? Different things like that. And I've done that with kind of a double-edged sword idea, sort of. I want the regular believer, in a sense, I don't like really calling them that, but I want church people. I want church people to know what it's like to be a pastor. Part of the goal for that is that they can better pray for and support their pastors. But I also want to encourage pastors, other pastors, through that video. What I've found is that when I create one of those videos, the views are great. I get more comments and I get messages on those videos constantly. The reason is because pastors are getting discouraged. Pastors are frustrated with ministry. And that breaks my heart. That's heavy on my heart. So today I just want to take a few minutes and I want to talk to pastors. If you're not a pastor, you can feel free to continue to watch this video if you want, because again, hopefully it will help you gain a better perspective and understanding for your pastor. But I want to see if somehow in the things that God has taught me over the years, I can encourage a discouraged pastor. There are times where a pastor's job can really feel kind of pointless. There's a lot of work that goes into preparing a sermon, and then pastors are guys that are preparing sermons, and then they're teaching Sunday school, and some of them have Sunday night and Wednesday night. They could be teaching 4 or 5 of these lessons a week where they're really digging in and studying. And then they're doing all the other stuff, and that wears on a person, especially when you just, you get to the end of the week and you have to start all over and you're doing it again. It's tiring. It's tiring to carry the burdens of your people. It's tiring to continue to carry the same burdens, to struggle with people who are making the same poor decisions over and over again. Often in pastoral ministry, as you're preaching and teaching and you're working with these people, the change that you see is so minimal. And what it can feel like is almost as though we're on a hamster wheel and you're just spinning the wheel, right? You're working hard, yet in 1 Timothy 3:1, Paul tells young Timothy that if you desire the office of an overseer, you're desiring a good thing, an honorable thing. And sometimes you don't feel like that thing that you're doing is very good or honorable. Well, in today's video, I want to give you 5 tips, 5 things that I have learned that hopefully will be a help to you. Hey everybody, I'm Pastor Joshua Putnam. I want to say thanks for hitting the play button. I assume if you hit this play button, probably one of 2 things. You're either a churchgoer who's curious about this idea of pastors getting discouraged, or you are a pastor that's been discouraged or want to make sure you don't get discouraged. And what I want to share with you are some things the Lord taught me. And when I say this, I really feel like in a lot of ways, I probably don't have any reason to be making this video, because I often feel that I have no reason to be speaking into another pastor's life. However, when I see pastors discouraged, it's a heavy burden for me. We have so few pastors in ministry or coming into ministry that we can't afford to lose the pastors who are already in ministry. And by God's grace, there are some things that I have learned that have kept me going, that have even kept me out of discouragement for a lot of years. Sure, I still get frustrated, but I don't find myself discouraged. I don't find myself in the place of actually thinking about quitting ministry because it's not worth it anymore. God continues by His grace to keep me moving forward. And there are 5 real specific things that have really impacted that in my life. Here's the first one. The first one is, pastors, you need to develop a vision. I've seen both sides of this. I've seen churches that have good vision, and I've seen churches that have no vision. I have served in ministries with vision, and I've served in ministries with no vision. And maybe part of this is the way that I'm wired, but I believe every church should have a vision. Every church should be moving forward towards something. And as a pastor, man, that makes my life so much more, can we say, fulfilling, so much more enjoyable when I know that every week I am working to move my church closer towards a goal. When I say have a vision, set a vision, I want to caution you because it's really easy for a church to have a vision that's not biblical, and that vision can discourage you just as much as having no vision because you're working so hard for something that you're not attaining. You can be busy still doing nothing, accomplishing nothing if your vision is not biblical. Jesus told us in Matthew 16, he promised us that he would build his church. But what I've found as I have moved forward in ministry, as I've prayed forward and struggled forward and studied forward in ministry, when Jesus said, I will build my church, he had a very specific plan. And when you begin to understand that, and that becomes your vision, let me encourage you, if you've never taken the time to just study deeply through Acts and see how the church functioned, how they grew, what happened. I preached through Acts and taught my church through Acts. And that was I believe, one of the best things for me and one of the best things for our church because we could see what the New Testament church was and start to kind of get a little convicted about how far we as a modern American church have gone away from that. We have our own traditions and we have our own things, and it's time to come back to simply what was church intended to be. And that's where your vision should be developed around, not what other people are telling you your vision should be, not what the experts are telling you the vision should be, but what Jesus told us our vision should be. Everything we do in our church, every ministry, everything we put our time into should be circling our vision. In our church, I refer to our vision as our why. This is why we exist. And why would I do anything else that doesn't answer or help us live out the why we exist? So it needs to be biblical. It needs to be biblical because when I'm challenged against my vision, when things don't seem to be going the way that I want them to go, or when a new idea comes in, or even when other people in church are kind of pushing back because they're not seeing their expectations met, then I am reminded, no, I know what the vision is. It is a biblical vision. It's based on God's word, and I stick with it because of that. It's made me a much better leader to know and understand where God has us going. You need to develop a vision. And then every day, instead of just preaching and teaching for the sake of preaching and teaching, every time I get in the pulpit, every time we teach a Sunday school class, every time we have a Bible study, what are we doing? We understand that, not just me, but others who are involved. Our leadership knows we are moving forward towards a vision. Number 2, have a biblical perspective. It's so easy to get an outward perspective or a worldly perspective, but have a biblical perspective. Our vision helped give me this, and maybe you could look at it this way. Look for fruit in your ministry through biblical glasses. Don't look for fruit through glasses given to you by somebody else. It's so easy to compare yourself to other churches. It's easy to compare yourself to what you think you should be doing. Whatever the case may be, we get these biblical, or we get these viewpoints that are not biblical, these expectations and these perspectives that are not biblical. Having a biblical perspective and understanding what God's expectation is for me, what God's expectation is for the people, understanding what part of this church growth thing is mine and what part of it is God's. I've learned to look for fruit in different ways. Instead of looking for massive fruit, we've learned to find fruit in little things. And it's those little things that when we find them and we start to see that God is always at work in our church, there's always something happening. It might not be visible to everybody. It might not be something that everybody's going to celebrate. But in our world, we all celebrate that. We get excited about that because we understand that it's God's working and God building his church. And we get excited about that. We celebrate that fruit, and it keeps me from getting discouraged. Number 3 really flows along with that, but I wanted to say it this way: gain a biblical understanding for God's plan. And I kind of already said this, but God's plan is not numbers. We have been taught for years that numbers is the thing. That we want numbers because we want to be reaching more people for Christ. And we think that we have a greater ministry. We're making a greater impact. But oftentimes the more numbers we have, the less depth we have. And in God's plan, it's about depth. It's not about width. God didn't call us to make attenders. He called us to make disciples. And that's his plan. That's how he wants to build the church, is by multiplying and making disciples. Making disciples is not about a quick fix. If you're going to embrace a disciple-making mindset to grow your church, which I believe is the way Jesus intended it, it's not going to happen quickly. It's going to take time. But when I have a biblical perspective and I understand God's plan, when it's taking longer than I want, I can be okay with that, because that's the part that's up to God. If I'm doing what He's asked me to do, if as a church we're doing what He's asked us to do, then the rest is up to Him. How many people we have on a Sunday morning, that's up to God. He's going to determine that. He's going to work that through His building of this local church. Number 4, this has helped me a lot. Build relationships with other pastors. Build good, genuine friendships with them. That people that you can reach out to and let them know you're struggling, or let them know what you're excited about. Share both the good and the bad with them. I just had a pastor this week text me and say, hey, I just came back from vacation and here's what I came back to. And this might be a tough and a challenging week. Will you pray for me? And I said, of course. And immediately I prayed for him. And he now knows that he has a network of people, friends that he's built that are praying for him and encouraging him and helping him through this. I have a pastor's fellowship in Florida that I attend every year. It's not about going down there and hearing some good preaching and some good teaching. I love that stuff. But what I look forward the most is reconnecting with pastors that I've developed a relationship with, I've cultivated a good friendship with over the years, and we just go to dinner, we hang out, and we encourage each other. You have to have other pastors that are encouraging you. The fifth and final one that I have for you might seem odd, and I believe is probably going to be the one that I get the most pushback on. But let me tell you that it has been one of the most impactful things in my ministry to keep me going. And that is this: find a ministry outside the church, something you really enjoy doing that can get you away from the church, but put you in the community, put you around people, gives you something that you can be doing that's not necessarily church related, but is ministry related. And the reason that I say that instead of just find a hobby, and you should have a hobby, that's good. But when I'm doing the thing that I have, this ministry outside the church that I have, I don't feel like I'm wasting my time. As pastors, we can feel guilty, right? We think about all the things we have at church that we should be doing. And then instead of just going and taking some time to enjoy a hobby or enjoy something like that, we say, no, we need to be doing these things at church. But if I have a ministry, I can kind of detach myself from church and I can go and be a part of that ministry. For me, I have the opportunity of serving as a chaplain at a large fire department near here. And I will go and just spend time with the firefighters. I'll run shifts with them. I'll do whatever they're asking me to do at the time. And it kind of detaches me from church, but it gives me an opportunity to build relationships with them. God gives me a ministry with them, but it's very different than my ministry here. I'm doing productive things, eternally productive things, while also kind of taking a break from my church ministry, which is highly valuable for me because it's almost like a reset in my mind. It gives me a chance to be detached. I'm also a volunteer firefighter here in my community. And I love that because when I get a call, I have to completely shut down ministry and be fully focused on what I'm doing. But when I come back, I'm refreshed and I'm ready to go. It's very important, and this is going to sound weird, but I feel it's very important that a pastor's entire life is not the church, but we have other things that we're doing, other ministries that we enjoy. And then, of course, we need hobbies. We need to spend time with our family. But find a ministry outside of the church that you can be involved in and you can be pouring yourself into. Guys, I hope this was a help to some discouraged pastors. I hope as church people listening that this helped give you a better perspective. How can you encourage your pastor? What can you encourage him to do? If your pastor does have a ministry outside the church, understand that that's good for him. That's good for you. That's good for the church, the community. Let them do that. There's a lot of times that I hear of church members that get frustrated because their pastors are doing things outside the church. It's not healthy for a pastor to have his entire life soaked up with the church. So maybe this video helped you with that as well. If you're a pastor, please tell me, what do you do to keep yourself from getting discouraged? How do you unplug, or how do you stay refreshed? How do you keep going? Drop that in the comments. Also, church members, there are things that you can do, specific things you can do to encourage your pastor. If that's a video you'd like to see, tell me in the comments and I will make sure to make a video like that. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of this. I trust I encouraged you. Please hit the like button. And if you're brand new to my channel, if you've never subscribed, I'd love to have you subscribe and hit the bell so that you can stick around and be a part of this ministry right here on YouTube and be a part of what God is doing through this. I'd love to have you be a part of it so you don't miss anything. Make sure you subscribe, hit the bell. You know what to do. We'll talk to you later. I'll see you in the next video.